Welcome to the D Sweet Nation. This is episode 22. Today we're going to be talking about Shaq Daddy, the Diesel, Shaquille O'Neal, who apparently is one of Dan's favorite players, because you could tell this is a Dan topic. I love Shaq, and he gets on my nerves. I don't hate Shaq. He just ain't one of my favorite players. I respect the hell out of him, though. Well, we're going to talk today obviously we're going to talk about his career. We're going to talk about his days at LSU, what he meant to the NBA. We might even compare him to a few other centers, and should be an interesting topic. Dan?
Yeah, specifically, I wanted to see what your opinion was and talk about where Shaq ranks among the all-time great centers of the NBA. We'll maybe spit out a top five and give our opinions about where he ranks or where he sits on those top five. And I got some other sources to, their rankings on the top five centers. So we'll compare and we'll see where we go. Okay,
you go ahead and I know we have a couple of questions prepared. I'll let you go first, Dan, since I'm a gracious host.
So like you said, you're not a big fan of Shaq, but you respect his game.
Oh yeah.
So what are the aspects about his game that you like, and what are some of the aspects about his game that you didn't like?
When I say I respect Shaq, not only as a player, but I do respect him as a person, because he does a lot for people all over the country and all over the world. So, as a person, even though I don't know him personally, obviously, but as a person, nothing but respect for him. I think he's a great human being. Let me see. Some of the things I like about him. First time I seen him play at LSU when his games came on ESPN. In my lifetime, I've never seen a person that big, tall, that was as quick, fast, would dunk the ball 10, 11 times a game, block about 5 or 6 shots every game. His athleticism and his hunger and he had a killer instinct too. That's probably the one thing that I love about him more than anything else. For somebody to be that big, he has a killer instinct to go along with it. Something like guys like Dwight Howard doesn't have, there are probably a couple other people, but we just never seen nothing like that before. At least I hadn't to that point.
Right.
When he was in college, when Larry Bird says that you're the best player in the world and he was still in college, this is before he was in the NBA and before we knew he was going to be. When Larry Bird says that you're the best player in the world,
yeah,
obviously you're pretty good. Let me see. Things that I don't like about him, there's not really a whole lot of things that I really don't like about him.
Not about him, about his game. What are some of the aspects of his game that you weren't a fan of or didn't like?
Let me see. Although, he carried his weight well with LA and Miami, when he put on a couple extra pounds. I wish that he would have stayed in tip-top condition as far as running up and down, being in shape. I wish he would have been in Orlando Magic type of condition when he was built like that.
Yeah.
I wish that he would have took better care of his body, because if you think about how dominant he was, being that 350 pounds or whatever he was, for him to be that dominant at that size, I can't imagine if he would have been in shape for 2/3 or 3/4 of his career, how even better he would have been.
Yeah.
So that's what I've always, and I heard Kobe Bryant say it too. He said that if Shaq would have kept his body in shape and took fitness seriously, he said they could have won 10 or 11 championships.
Yeah.
But there's not really anything about it like his actual game that I don't like. I think he has a big mouth, kind of.
Yeah.
Because they did a thing where you remember when Isaiah and Magic sat in the chairs and they were facing each other, they interviewed each other. Well, Kobe and Shaq did something like that also after Magic and Isaiah, where they kind of rekindled their friendship. And he, taking some shots at Ben Wallace in that interview, saying if we would have did this differently, and then he said, "How could I lose to Ben Wallace?" And kind of disrespect him a little bit. And if I would have been at that interview, I'd have told Shaq, well, they beat you a year after that too. When you was with the Miami Heat. And not only did he, beat you, I'm not saying that Bill Wall's a better player than Shaq, first of all. I'm not saying that. But you lost to him 2 years in a row. And with Miami, I remember him going for a two-handed dunk on Ben Wallace, and Wallace caught him with one arm and in midair threw his fat ass on the ground, man. I just don't like the cheap shots he took at Ben Wallace,
Yeah.
But that's all. As far as his game, no, I don't really have I'm not really critical on his game because I had a pair of Shaq Gnosis tennis shoes back in the mid-'90s, those black and white, like circular.
Yep.
I had those shoes. I wore those on the playground a lot.
Okay.
I'm not a big fan of his, but I think there's more things I respect about him than not respect about him. As far as actual game, there's not really. Because like if I was an NBA player, I can't even imagine what it would be like with someone that big and strong, leaning on me and throwing his arms around. And Bill Laimbeer retired because of him. Bill Laimbeer retired early in the 93-94 season. And he said that the two reasons he retired is, number one, the desire wasn't there. And he said a second reason was, he said, it's just a matter of time before I play against Shaquille O'Neal where I'm going to be seriously injured.
Yeah.
But Bill Laimbeer did say, though, he said, now, if I was, younger, I'd have been hitting him in the head and, basically doing Bill Laimbeer shit to him. But yeah, he basically kind of forced Laimbeer to retire.
Yeah, just ask Scott Pollard about that back in the 2000 finals or 2000 Western Conference Finals when they played the Kings. He was beaten up on. Pollard was taking it. Pollard was a foul giver, but he was beating up on Pollard. But I definitely think Laimbeer in his prime would have been the best choice to muscle up against Shaq. He may not have been able to handle him, but Laimbeer was a tough guy, and he definitely would have went full hack-a-Shack mode on Shaq.
Oh yeah, and Shaq would have had to guarded Laimbeer out on the perimeter.
Yeah,
because Laimbeer, obviously Laimbeer was a good jump shooter, but
yeah.
Scott Pollard, I didn't wake up this morning thinking I was going to hear that name. That's why I love our show, man, because we have obscure references like Scott Pollard being mentioned.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely agree with you about his weight. If Shaq would have been slim and fit and muscular his whole career, we might not be there may not be no debate about where we put Shaq amongst the all-time greats. Because you think about a guy like Kareem, what if Kareem had put on just a crap ton of weight over the course of his career? You know what I mean? What if Kareem was, 50, 75 pounds heavier at the tail end of his career than he was at the beginning, with the Showtime Lakers? Would he have still been effective? Would that skyhook have still been effective? You know what I mean?
Right.
Because Shaq kind of emulated that a little bit in the beginning of his career. Even with the LA too, he Shaq had a pretty decent baby hook from the foul line, in the lane.
Yeah,
so, but yeah, I definitely think as his career went on and as he got heavier, those kind of mid-range moves kind of went away from Shaq, and he depended too much on the dunk and the little close-in baby hooks and things like that. But, I think I definitely wish Shaq would have been a better defensive rebounder. And, of course, the free throws were always a struggle for Shaq. So, those two areas of his game, if he were a little better in those two areas, his stat line would be a lot better to look at as well.
Yeah. I'm always going to be curious after, when they three-peated in 2000, 2001, and 2002, always curious if Shaq and Kobe would have gotten together and just said, let's try to win as many titles as we can.
Oh.
Let's, I don't know what their beef was in the mid-2000s or whatever, but
it was egos, man. It was egos, because you think about it, and we might get into it later, but if you look at it, it was a similar relationship with Shaq and Kobe as there was with Shaq and Penny Hardaway, but Penny Hardaway just wasn't the big ego that Kobe Bryant was. Hardaway was a talented player, but he was like, he was kind of quiet. You know, he's like, I'm not going to say much. I'm just going to play. You know what I mean? He let Little Penny do all the talking. Remember Little Penny, the little Chris Rock doll that the
Chris Rock commercials.
yeah. Yeah. So I mean, if those two guys, if egos aside, if those two guys would have been able to squash the beef and just not let their egos get in the way, that team, you might have been looking at that team rivaling, you know, the Bulls dynasty. You know, they may have went on a run and won just as many championships if those two guys would have stayed together.
I would have said the Boston Celtics dynasty. I think they would have won that many titles. Like in the 50s and 60s, it would have been that kind of dynasty because those guys were that talented and their leadership was second to none. I don't know if we've ever really seen two teammates that were that high on the chart of all-time players. I mean, maybe Elgin Baylor, Jerry West was probably close to that, but well, Magic and Kareem, obviously, but
Kareem, I mean, Scottie Pippen and Jordan are comparable, but are on that list. I'm not saying they're the closest, but they're on that list as well. But definitely, I think, those two guys, the level of their game being on the same team. I don't know if we've ever seen two guys at that level on the same team before, but I don't think we've ever seen a breakup of that kind either, of two big players and egos on the same team and couldn't coexist either. But
and Dan, you know, I said this on when we had that NBA bracket with Jay and Judd. I've always thought that because of their ages now, okay? I'm talking about Jordan, Pippen, and Rodman, because of their ages. Had they stayed around 2 more years, I think they were better than the Spurs in '99. They probably would have beaten them, but in 2000, they would have eventually lost to somebody. They would have had to pass the torch. I think that 2000 Shaq and Kobe LA team would have beat Chicago because Chicago would have been too old to deal with them too.
Yeah, I definitely think, because you're right, without getting off on a Bulls tangent, because the documentary just brought this up, that not many people think about that next season was a shortened season. It was only a 50-game season. So you're talking about, you know, Jordan and that team being really tired and withered at the end of the season. That next season, if they all stay together, if Jerry Krause isn't an idiot and let his ego break up that team, you know, they would have played on a shortened season the next season. They would have probably gotten through the Spurs, been on a quest for 8, going up against Shaq and Kobe in 2000. That, I think, would have been the finals for the ages. Like that could have been the best finals series of all time.
Could have been.
Could have been.
Well, yeah. I mean, let me get my years straight here.
What year are you trying to remember?
Okay. From the 2007 NBA Finals all the way to the 2018 NBA Finals. That's 12 seasons. Either Kobe or LeBron was in the finals every year, but they never played each other. If they ever got matched up a couple of times, I think that would have been like Magic and Bird type shit.
Yeah.
Because Kobe, LeBron and Kobe are going to be LeBron and Kobe on the court. We know that, but Kobe would have. There would have been some pushing and shoving. They would have really been going at each other. I just wish we could have seen that matchup in the finals. But I understand what you're saying about Chicago and LA in the year 2000.
Yeah.
Never know. I think one more thing about Chicago in '99. I think that they were good enough to one more year in that shortened season, like you just said.
Yeah.
But I heard Dennis Rodman say that they could have went 50-0. Well, hey man, he dissed you on the airplane. Dennis Rodman dissed you on the airplane, wasn't it? So.
Well, he didn't diss me. I didn't even try because the guy in front of me asked him for a picture, and he's like, no. And he walked. He was like, we came off the gate, and everybody was supposed to go this way, and he went that way and waited until everybody got far away. But he just didn't want to be talked to. He didn't diss me personally, but he dissed everybody that wanted to say hi to him or get a picture with him. Yeah.
Here's my first question to you, Dan. What was your impression of Shaq the very first time you laid eyes on him on TV?
It was in college, and you know, like you said earlier, he was just doing things I mean, he was just a freak of nature. And he was just like, he was an eye-opening player. You know, it was like the type of player you watch and your eyes just like, man, I can't believe what I'm seeing right now. He just, the way he dominated people, his physical stature, you know, you rarely ever seen a player of that size, not just talking height, you know, not like the Sean Bradleys of the world, but, you know, because we got that effect with, oh, the name is escaping me, Manute Bol. You know, he's freakishly tall, but Shaq is now freakishly tall and built like Karl Malone. You know what I mean?
He was built like Karl Malone, and he had Dominique Wilkins' athletic ability.
Yeah, yeah, and he was just the athletic moves that he pulled off as a big man. He was just polarizing, and you were just blown away. And it literally just eye opening is the first thing that comes to my mind. You see him. And then when it got to the pros, it was just an extension of that. You're like, my God, this guy is doing things that people have never seen before. I mean, when's the last player you've seen not only break a backboard, but make an entire basket collapse? You know what I mean? Right. It was just astounding. You know, like one of the fun facts I have is that, you know, the NBA, Shaq forced the NBA to change a rule in the NBA. You know, after he collapsed that ring or that hoop in Phoenix, you know, the NBA created that or made that a technical foul. If you dunked and broke the rim or damaged it in any way, it was a technical foul.
I didn't know that.
After that game, after he destroyed that basket, they had to take it in the back and weld it to get it working again. And that next season, they made it that if you dunked and you damaged the rim in any way, hoop, basket, whatever, it was a technical foul.
First of all, I did not know that. I don't agree with that rule at all. Because first of all, what are your chances of breaking a rim or a backboard or whatever, damaging it? And the purpose of dunking the ball is to throw it down with authority and, you know, to ensure yourself 2 points. I've never heard of that rule, Dan.
Yeah, yep. It never really played into effect. I don't think. I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up to see if at that next season or after that, if Shaq ever, you know, had a technical foul assessed to him for breaking a backboard or doing anything. But I think he then like cooled it a little bit and didn't really hang and use as much force, you know, to cause damage. But it was a rule.
Yeah, I don't like that rule.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but you never. Sometimes rules are created out of necessity. But yeah, the NBA they should make their equipment better so it doesn't collapse and break. You know, they know these 7-footers are dunking on it and all this stuff. They should weld it up a little bit better.
I always wish that. I know I would have got dunked on and ran over, and I would have got hurt, but I just wish I could get that appreciation of how strong he is, man. Just for one play, I just want to guard him down there in a low block. Like I said, I would have got dunked on very easily, but I just want to get that appreciation of how strong he is, man.
I mean, I'll take the television's word for it. I've seen him literally make 7-foot guys, you know, these 6'8", 6'9", 7-foot dudes just look like rag dolls. Just like, get off of me. You know what I mean? Like you said, Scott Pollard. He's not a small guy, and he, you know, the Ricky Dudleys or not Ricky. Who's the Dudley?
Chris Dudley.
Chris Dudley. You know, just throwing these guys around.
I remember that one when he threw Chris.
You know what I mean? And so, like, I'll take their word for it. You know, I see him muscling these big centers and power forwards out of the way. Like, I don't want no part of that. I can see it with my own eyes. You know what I mean?
Chris Dudley, the pride of Yale University.
Like, you don't have to stand there and watch a race car drive by to wonder how fast it's going. You know what I mean? You're
right.
Like, oh, yeah, it's fast. I got it. I see.
There's just two things I've always been curious about. Like what I just said about Shaq, about how strong he is. And I've always wondered, like, how what it would be like to lock up with Andre the Giant. You know, that's the other one. That's the other example I always use. Shaq, and what it's like to tussle with Andre the Giant. I just always wondered what that kind of strength felt like. All right. Well, you got question number 2?
Yeah. Did you know where Shaquille O'Neal got his number from?
High school, college, or pro? Because those were all different numbers.
Well, he wore two different numbers. Well, three different numbers. But when he started, like, you know,
In high school?
in college, high school and college, he wore
33. He wore 33
yeah,
high school
yeah,
and college.
yeah. Do you know why he wore 33?
Ewing. Patrick Ewing?
Nope.
Okay,
Nope.
I don't know.
He wanted 33 in high school to honor Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Oh, okay.
But his high school didn't have a number 33. So he wore number 32 in high school. And when he got to LSU, they had a 33, so he was able to wear 33. So he wore 33 at LSU to honor Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But when he got to the Magic, 33 again was not available. A veteran named Terry Coldridge had 33 and wouldn't give it up for Shaq. So he went back to wearing number 32.
I think I somewhat remember him. So he wouldn't give it up, and
If that guy would have given it up, yeah, Shaq would be, he'd probably been 33 for his entirety of his career.
I think
because obviously when he got to the Lakers, he couldn't wear 32 because that was Magic's number. That's why he chose 34. But I'm not sure why 33 wasn't available for the Lakers.
that was Kareem's number. Kareem retired that number.
So, oh yeah, duh. So I just said it.
I think a guy named Pat Williams or somebody was the general manager of Orlando. I wonder why he wouldn't like overrule something like that. Because
I don't think you can.
Because Shaq is probably, let me see, Shaq is probably the only draft pick ever in the draft that was a absolute for certain dominant force, championships, all the records, this and that. That's like he's like the only player where everybody was 100% that he's going to dominate the whole time he plays in the league.
Yeah.
For someone like that, someone like him, wow, I don't, okay, yeah.
Well, that's it. Yeah, general manager can't make up a player, give up their number. You know what I mean? That's a player's identity. You know what I mean? That's, seniority rules. They see it all the time in the NFL now. Usually it only happens in the NFL because of the number of players and the numbers. You don't see it in the NBA because, there's a lot of numbers and there's only 13 to 15 man roster on an NBA team. But you see NFL players now, they go to a new team and they they get traded or signed in free agency and another player has that number, unless it's already a superstar player, usually, some money is exchanged, money exchanged hands and a player is able to, purchase their number from some scrub that's on the team or some bench player that has their number. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow. That's a fun fact. Can't say that I knew that. All right. Well, the dream team. Now it's Christian Laettner and Shaq time now. And first, look, say anything you want about Christian Laettner. Look, I respect what he did in college. I respect that he had a long NBA career, longer than I thought he was going to play in the league. But you ever see like Christian Laettner like do an interview, the way he talks, the way he presents himself?
Yeah, I've seen the documentary that the 30 for 30 that they did on Christian Laettner. I
know they had to have one college player, represent the dream team, which is fine, but and Duke. Those two Duke championship teams are one of the greatest teams ever. And Laettner's one of the best college players ever, okay? Not taking that from him, but
probably one of the most accomplished players in college basketball history.
Right. And he's National Player of the Year. I heard Christian Laettner say that I don't remember if it was Dan Patrick or Rich Eisen that asked him this, but they were talking about Shaq and the dream team and Christian Laettner and all that stuff. He was talking to Laettner. Laettner, according to him, he said it would have been impossible to have Shaq on our team because he would have probably not demanded, but probably would have been required to like play like a lot of minutes, maybe even start on that team. He said, with them picking me, it wasn't an issue if I was going to play or not. He said I was totally fine with not playing. He thinks that Shaq would have disrupted the chemistry, so to speak. That's Lakers theory.
I don't agree with that.
How much fun would that have been to see Shaq? Now we're talking about coming out of LSU. That Shaq we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
How fun would it have been to see that athlete like that playing against them foreign players?
Man, you talk about a deep roster. You know, I think the Dream Team was like 12 guys on the Dream Team. I believe that roster was 12 guys. I mean, Christian Laettner was the 12th best player on that team. So you talk about see if I remember correctly, the centers on that team, Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, and I feel like I'm forgetting someone.
No, that was it.
That was it? And Christian Laettner, right? You're talking about a three-man center rotation with Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, and Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah, I don't think Laettner. I don't know what position he played. Forward, center. I don't know what he played up.
I'm pretty sure he was considered a center. Maybe they could have played him at both because you had Karl Malone and Charles Barkley were the forwards on that team. So I think they were kind of maybe considering Laettner as a 4 and not a 5.
Yeah.
But man, I tell you what, I think Shaq would have been he would have been astoundingly better coming into his rookie season. If you're talking about you could play for a summer and learn from guys like Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, and be around guys like Magic, Bird, and Jordan.
Yep.
Like, come on. Like, I'm not sure, why Laettner didn't, come out a little bit better, although he had a long, respectable career. But I think Shaq would have meshed better personality-wise with guys like Magic, Barkley, Jordan, than Laettner did. You know what I mean? That team seemed to be very loose, competitive, but very loose. A lot of, fun personalities on that team, and Shaq fit right into that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I just imagine like Magic throwing lob passes to him.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Wow, man.
But yeah, lost my train of thought again. Go ahead.
But what a deadly center rotation you would have had with those three guys, man. And I guess what everybody keeps saying is that, Shaq, although, like we said, Christian Laettner had, the more accomplished career in college basketball, and he was, player of the year. Shaq had a shorter career because I believe he only stayed 2 years in college.
Who, Shaq?
Yeah.
3. I believe he played 3.
Was it 3? Okay.
Yeah,
shorter career, but definitely the better player. I just didn't think it was, not the right people knew about it. Not everybody knew about it. I think I just lost my train of thought. But the thing that everybody said was that it was because of the European lane setup that Laettner was chosen over Shaq. I guess something to do with the block, the low post is a little farther away from the basket, so Shaq would have been maybe a little bit more uncomfortable, or maybe not used to that, and been a little off. He couldn't play as close to the basket as they would have liked him to. So that's another reason they chose Laettner over Shaq.
Well, I know what I was going to say now. That infamous practice that they show in Spain, where the Dream scrimmaging against each other.
Yeah. Monte Carlo.
Yeah, Monte Carlo. Yeah. You heard what Magic Johnson said, right? He said,
I've heard it all, but remind me.
He said, I had my 5. He said, Mike had his 5. He said, we gave him the college guy. He said, we didn't want him.
Yeah. They didn't even call him by his name. They just called him the college guy.
That college. And Michael said, he said he was just sitting there laying on the sidelines waiting to check in. He said, but, he couldn't benefit any of these teams. He said, because of Magic, it was a pride thing.
Yeah. There was no way he was getting in on that game. No way. There was too much on the line. Once Magic teams went up 20 and Jordan's like, okay, I'm done fucking around now. There wasn't nobody else coming in that game.
Yeah. Okay, that's my second question. You got your second question now? Or
Third? Let's see. I guess my third question is just going to be, we're going to get straight to the point. Like, where do you put Shaq on the list? Top 5 centers. Where do you put Shaq on that list?
Oh boy. Well, I mean, I already know what I'm going to say, but man, this is the time where when people see this, they're going to be jumping on me. But I don't care, man. Let me see. I don't have him above Kareem and Wilt. Now, look, I'm not going to judge by number of championships, okay? Like I'm not going to put like Bill Russell ahead of Shaq just because he won a lot more titles.
Okay.
I'm just talking individuality, individual center position.
Yeah. Now, before you answer, would you like me to give you some stats to see if that maybe sways your decision at all?
If you feel the need, go ahead.
Okay, so Shaq's stat line over his career averaged 23.7 points, 10.9, 23.7, average 23.7, 10.9 rebounds a game, 2.3 blocks, 2.5 assists, right? And his playoff performance was pretty much the same, right on point. He wasn't one of those guys that elevated his averages in the playoffs. He's 8th in points all time, 3rd amongst big men or guys you would consider centers. 4th if you count Dirk Nowitzki. If you count Dirk Nowitzki, he's 4th. If you don't count Dirk, he's 3rd amongst centers in scoring all time. 8th overall. He's 15th in rebounding, but he's 6th in offensive rebounds. So Shaq wasn't a great defensive rebounder. He was a much better offensive rebounder because I'm assuming it's the putback dunks that where he bolstered those stats on. Career 60% shooter. Hall of Famer, 15-time All-Star, 2-time scoring champ, 4 NBA titles, 14-time All-NBA, 3-time All-Defense.
Okay. I want to let me see. He played 19 years in the league. I probably would have been more interested to know what like his averages were out of those 19 years, like maybe like his first 13 years or 14 years.
After stopping with the Heat.
I gotta imagine because Phoenix, when he went to Phoenix after Miami, that was kind of the bridge Shaq there.
Yeah. Well, I think he only played 3 seasons after Miami. I think he played 1 season with Phoenix, 1 season with Cleveland, and 1 season with Boston.
Okay, yeah, I think you're right. So you gotta think that with Phoenix, Cleveland, and Boston, his numbers probably went down. But I have him 3rd as far as centers go.
Okay.
Because oh man, this is where Ray don't know what he's talking about. You're a hater.
I don't think anybody's going to argue with that. When I initially thought of that question,
guys I went to school with, man, and there's like 50 guys who are going to have opinions. There's going to be like 8 of them. I'm a hater. I don't know what I'm talking about. There'll be all that jive ass. But anyways, Kareem, to me, Kareem is the best. Okay, like from like his rookie season, 1970 to like 83, 84. That version of Kareem was the best because I'll get to Shaq in a minute. I'm not trying to make it about Kareem. I'm just going to talk about the 3.
No, absolutely.
Kareem to me is the best because number one, the guy never lost a game in high school. In college, he lost 2 games, but he won the national title all 3 years and was the MVP of the Final Four all 3 years. He gets to the pros. He gets drafted by Milwaukee, and when he got there, they were like I don't know the exact numbers. They were 22, 23 win team when he got there. His second year in the league, they won the championship. Him and Oscar Robertson, an older version of Oscar Robertson. But he took them to a title. He averaged, I know his rookie season, he averaged it was 29 and 15 or something like that. And he took them to a title, played in the finals again in 74. Then he gets traded to then he goes to the Lakers. And the whole 1970s, I mean, he just dominated the NBA for the whole decade. I think a player that would probably in the 70s, Dr. J. You know, if you talk about the NBA and ABA, he would be like second best as far as dominating. But Kareem dominated that entire decade, had an unstoppable move, and then with the Lakers, you know, he wins 5 titles. He was I'm pretty sure he was the Finals MVP in '85. If you want to check that, I'm pretty sure he was. You know, he sprained his ankle in 1980 when Magic was a rookie. Might have been the MVP of that Finals too, but had an unstoppable move. He's all-time leading scorer, 6 MVPs, which is I believe a record in all 4 sports. I think in all NHL, baseball, NFL, and basketball, I think Kareem is the only individual athlete that has won 6 Most Valuable Player awards. I'm almost for certain of that. I know he won 6, but I think he's the only one. Because Jordan won, I think, 4 or 5. He didn't win 6.
I was thinking he's won 5, yeah.
Yeah, but, you know, he's all-time leading scorer. So I have to put him at the best. And then basically, like, Kareem was like, you know, basically from the time he entered the league until his final year in '89 when they lost to Detroit in the finals, I mean, his team was basically contending for a championship. You know, if they weren't in the NBA finals, he either won the championship or they were like one of the 2 or 3 teams that was favored to win the title. So
Right.
he's always competing for a championship. The ultimate winner, he's the best player of all time. That's just my opinion. So, and plus, I think he's the best player of all time. So obviously, if I think he's the best player, obviously I think he's the best center. Number 2, I got to put Wilt Chamberlain at number 2 because I think he was ahead of his time. You know, obviously we know about his scoring numbers in the 1960s. You know, he had the 1 year where he averaged 50 a game. He was a great athlete. I know that in time that the evolution of athletes, they get better, bigger, and stronger. I think he was ahead of his time. I think Wilt could have played today in today's game. And I couldn't imagine because see, back when he played, you know, they were allowed to put 2 or 3 guys on you in the low post before the ball even got there. You know, they were allowed to mug you like that, man. And he had a rule change also, the 3-second rule that everybody knows about. That was the Wilt Chamberlain rule.
Yep.
I think, especially a day like today, where there really isn't any great centers. There's great athletes, obviously. You know, I know they could jump out of the gym and all that, but I can't imagine what Wilt would average today. And if he would have played against Shaq, like when Shaq was in his prime, like his Orlando and LA and the first couple years with Miami, would have been interested to see Shaq chasing him around.
Yeah.
Because Wilt was an All-American high jumper, you know, at Kansas.
Yep.
We're talking about a real athlete here.
Yeah.
You know, the guy led the league in assists 1 year. Did you know that?
Yeah, you mentioned that's about him in a few of our past podcasts.
Wilt led the league in assists, had a 100-point game, and he was the first player. And Russell Westbrook did it a couple years ago, so now there's 2 players. But he was the first player to have a 20-20-20 game, where he had 20 plus, you know, points, assists, and rebounds. He had 20 plus category. Russell Westbrook did that a couple years ago, so he's the second player.
Yeah.
You know, you just look at because he got bigger as the time went along. Because like if you look at his early Philadelphia days, you know, he was like really skinny.
Yeah. Put on a lot of muscle.
And I always tell people, back in the 50s and 60s, I think when they measured you in height, I think they stopped it at 7 foot or 7'1". I think that if you were like way higher than that, I think they still listed you as 7'1".
Yeah.
And, because I've heard like players or like people from the old days say that he was a lot taller than 7'1". Now, if you look at a picture of
Andre the Giant.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's got Andre the Giant on one side,
Yeah.
Wilt on the other. Now, Andre the Giant was 7'5". And you look at the both of them, and Wilt is a hair taller than Andre the Giant.
Yeah.
You know, Andre was 7'5", 525 pounds. Wilt was a little bit taller than him. And Wilt was, man, he was big, man. Wilt was big.
He put on some muscle.
Yeah, and he had I know he dominated that competition back then, but I think that he would have been a great center at any time. But yeah, I got Wilt at number 2, and Shaq. Um, I have him at number 3, and I will say this: had he been in shape for most of his career, I'd have very easily had him at number 1. I think his numbers would have been better. He'd have won more championships, and he probably would have been the best, the GOAT, as people say now, the GOAT. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I got Kareem, Wilt, and Shaq at 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Yeah, I would have said the same thing about it would have been scoring for me, with Kareem leading in scoring. I think Shaq would have had to pass Kareem in scoring to be talked about as number 1.
Yeah, I do have 2 honorable mentions. I want to at least acknowledge.
I was going to say you got a 4 and 5 because we're gonna compare them against 3 other established rankings. So you have a 4 and 5. So you got Shaq at 3. Who's your 4 and 5?
4 and 5. At 4 at Moses Malone and Akeem Olajuwon at 5.
Okay.
The only reason why I don't have Patrick Ewing in my top 5 centers, and I could very easily have him on there, and it's not because he didn't win any championships. It's because the knee injuries that he suffered when he got to the league. Because if you look at his highlights, if you watch like games when he played at Georgetown, the athlete that he was, because he was kind of like what Shaq was at LSU. Like Patrick Ewing was doing stuff like that in college, and had he not had those knee injuries, he would have been in my top 3, championship or no championship. So I have to put Moses Malone and Akeem Olajuwon above Ewing. So that's my 4 and 5.
Okay. Now I had my list initially when I was thinking about this. I was like, Kareem's number 1, and the 2 spot is where I had the most trouble because I immediately think about Shaq and Wilt. Now I lean towards Shaq because Shaq's higher on the points, and I don't know. I think it's because they didn't record rebounds back then. Or, I looked at rebound stats, and Chamberlain doesn't even show up on the list. As far as like
they kept track of rebounds back then because in the early 60s he had a 55 rebound game, which is a record.
Well, unless I missed his name, I kept looking down the list for Wilt's name, and I didn't see his name. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But
Wilt, I believe, is the all-time leading rebounder. I think. Wilt Chamberlain.
I could be wrong, and I could have missed that. But
now I know blocks and steals. I know they didn't keep track of that till like the early or mid 70s.
Okay.
Blocks and steals, those were not kept in the 50s and 60s. Rebounds was because I'm pretty sure Wilt's all-time leading rebounder.
I'll have to double check that.
Go ahead. I'm looking right now. Go ahead, Dan.
So I had Kareem, and eventually I settled on Shaq, Wilt, but it was like, it's like you could easily change my mind on that. But I think I'd have to see Wilt against centers of that era. I would want to see Wilt against centers like Shaq, Ewing, Olajuwon, Kareem. David Robinson. I want to see him against guys like that. I would have loved to see the comparison there. But I had Kareem, Shaq, Wilt, Olajuwon, and Bill Russell. That was my top 5. Now I'm going to tell you, I looked up from 3 different sources: ESPN, Bleacher Report, and NBA.com, and I looked at their rankings, the top 5.
Okay.
Would it surprise you that the number 1 guy is the same on all 3 lists?
Is it?
Would it surprise you if I said number 1 guy is the same on all 3 lists?
You're talking about the center position?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would surprise me. I thought it'd been all different.
No, they're all the same. Kareem. All 3 of them have Kareem at number 1.
Okay.
So ESPN has Kareem at number 1, Wilt at number 2, number 3 Bill Russell, 4 is where Shaq is, and 5 Olajuwon.
I am surprised that that it was that unanimous because out of 5 guys, I would have thought at least one of them would have thought Wilt was the best.
Yeah. But I thought about ESPN's list, and recently they came out with their own list of the top 50 players, and a lot of people had a lot of things to say about their rankings, and where different players should have been in different places, especially the top 10. But we'll digress about that. But Bleacher Report had Kareem number 1, Shaq at number 2, Duncan at number 3, followed by Russell and Wilt at number 5.
I have Tim Duncan as the best power forward of all time on my list.
Okay. Now, NBA.com has Kareem at number 1, Shaq at number 2, Olajuwon at number 3, followed by Wilt and Russell.
Wow. No Moses Malone in any of those groups, huh?
No Moses Malone, no Patrick Ewing.
You know, Moses Malone is in the top 10 in scoring and rebounding all time. Top 10.
Yeah.
And he's the only player, not unless LeBron James did it with Miami and Cleveland, but I know before that, he was the only player to win the MVP 2 years in a row with 2 different teams. Moses was that guy. I'm a little shocked that they don't have Moses. Now, Dan, I looked at the rebounds. Wilt is the all-time leading rebounder. He's got 2,300 more than Bill Russell, and Kareem is third, but Kareem is quite a bit behind Russell and Wilt.
Okay. Well, I apologize to everyone about that. Looking at the list, maybe I just bypassed the first name on the list. Maybe I just blanked it out. I don't know.
I know that they didn't keep track of blocks and steals in the 50s and 60s and like the first couple of years of the 70s. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
Because the only reason why I know that is because back, when we were kids, remember we collected, cards. And I just remember Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's card, like his first 4 or 5 years in the league. He has a 0 next to blocks and steals each year. So,
okay.
Yeah, they didn't keep track of that. Well, yeah, Wilt had a 55 rebound game one time.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Shaq's best game came in 2000 against the Clippers. He had 61 and 23, 61 points, 23 rebounds.
Do you know the story behind that? Do you know the story behind that game right there? I know exactly the game that you're talking about.
Go ahead.
Kareem was an assistant coach for the Clippers at the time, and I don't remember what he said, so I'm not going to quote him. But he said something, and Shaq took it like disrespectfully or something like that before the game. So Shaq said, and Shaq made it a point to annihilate the entire Clipper organization that game, and he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kareem has something to do with that.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this now. How good would Dwight Howard be if he had Shaq's killer instinct and work on his game year in and year out? How dominant would Dwight Howard have been?
Well, I don't know what happened to Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard was kind of Shaq-esque as far as dominance when he first came in the league. When he played for Orlando, he was that way. He didn't quite put up the, like, without looking at it, I don't want to say that he put up the same kind of numbers or didn't put up quite the numbers, but he was a dominating presence. He wasn't as physically big as Shaq was, but I don't know what happened after that beef with Stan Van Gundy, and he left that team. He just was never the same player. I don't know what happened, but if he would have kept that up until today, he's still playing today for the Lakers. He's kind of having a resurgent season, but
yeah, which is good.
But if he could have kept that up, we could have been talking about Dwight Howard in this conversation, and him still playing. But it didn't work out that way. But interesting enough, we go back to talk about, first of all, you mentioned Tim Duncan. And it was Shaquille O'Neal? Shaquille O'Neal was a huge nickname guy. He gave himself he had three. Yeah, he gave Tim Duncan the nickname, the Big Fundamental.
Yeah, I knew that. I think that was at the All-Star game when he gave. I remember that.
Yeah, but if you think back to when Chris Webber, originally was drafted by the Orlando Magic and could have been a teammate of Elijah or of O'Neal. How good of team would that team still have been as good with O'Neal and Chris Webber at the 5 and 4 spots?
I don't know, man.
Because it was Anthony Hardaway. I mean, I look at it, Anthony Hardaway was the point guard. He was the spark of that team. The assist guy. He was, you know what I mean? Who would have been that if you know, I see the reason they traded him. As tantalizing it as that team could have been, having those two big guys, kind of like a Duncan Robinson type thing.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I think of when those guys could have been playing together.
Well, Shaq said that when they did that Blue Chips movie, one of my favorite movies, when him and Anthony Hardaway and Nick Nolte movie Blue Chips.
Yep.
That's basically when he met Penny Hardaway. And Shaq had said that, you know, I want to play with this guy, like in the pros. He said because they had natural chemistry. And I don't know if he influenced the decision. I don't know who he talked to. But Shaq was very instrumental on making that trade. Now, when David Stern stepped to the podium in 1993 and said, the Orlando Magic selects Chris Webber from Michigan, everybody in the country, everybody, myself included, everybody was thinking, man, I can't wait to see this show.
Yeah.
Now, based on, you know, what we know now and based on, you know, the success that Orlando had, I mean, you really don't know how that would have turned out. And that kind of leads to my next question here, Dan, my third question. I often wondered, had Shaq and Penny and them, the core guys stayed together for 3 or 4 or more years, could they have won a championship together? Could they have beaten Michael's Bulls in 97 or 98 if they'd have stayed together? Or
let me see. You might have to help me with the history, but so it was 93 that the Bulls beat them in the Eastern Conference Finals, right?
No.
No?
No, they let me see. In '95, when Michael came back to the NBA, remember when he wore number 45, Orlando beat them in round 2. That's when they hoisted Horace Grant
Yes.
on the shoulders and Horace showboating.
Yes.
Probably happy because he finally got to after a game now.
I believe that was the Eastern Conference Finals.
Oh, that was the second round.
No, I believe it was the Eastern Conference Finals. Wait, because we just watched it in the documentary. Because that's what I made that comment. It was like, man, Jordan took a year off, and the year before, when it was a Pippen-led team, I believe it was the Orlando Magic again that Pippen and the Bulls lost to the Magic in the Eastern Conference Finals, and the next year was the same. Jordan and Pippen lost to them in the Eastern Conference Finals, and I was like, you know, even a Jordan-less Bulls, they still made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and then when Jordan came back, they still made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. And
in '95, Orlando beat the Indiana Pacers in 7 games in the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm 100%.
Okay, I'm gonna.
Michael, look. No, you got.
No,
look it up now.
I'm not gonna argue with you because you're the memory guy, and I am more than likely wrong, but
Michael and them, you are wrong. Michael and them lost in 6 games in round 2.
okay.
I mean, if Michael wouldn't have came back, they probably wouldn't have even made the playoffs. Chicago.
Yeah.
But he came back. They hoisted Horace Grant. Orlando did '95.
Okay.
Yeah, they played. Because I remember in '95, in the second round, that was also when Indiana beat New York when Ewing missed that layup in Game 7.
Yeah.
And then Indiana played Orlando in the Eastern Conference Finals. I remember Rick Smith hit a shot at the buzzer in Game 6 to send it to a Game 7.
Okay.
And it was swept finals.
So in '96, the first full season back for Jordan.
That was the Eastern Conference Finals when they swept Orlando.
They swept Orlando.
Yep.
And then what year did Shaq join the Lakers?
96, 97 was his
So after that season.
Yeah, after that season, yeah.
After that season. Okay. So 96, 97. Who did the Bulls face in the Eastern Conference Finals in 97? Because it was Indiana in 98.
Heat. Miami Heat.
The Miami Heat.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, man. If they would have, they might have went through. They might have went through a Bulls bad boys scenario there, where, you know, maybe that, you know, I mean, that's what influenced Shaq's decision is like, I got to go through Jordan every year. You know, I got to stay on this team and go through Jordan every year because, you know, if you think about it, Shaq really in that decision to stay or go to LA, he couldn't lose. He was either going to stay and play with Penny or he was going to go and play with Kobe. You know what I mean? Or Kobe wasn't drafted at that point. But go to the Lakers, you know. So I don't know. I don't think the Bulls in 96 and 97 were really good teams. I mean, they won 72 and 96. They came back, and I think they won 60 or 62 the following year in 97.
Yeah, they won 72 the one year, the 96.
Yeah.
And they won 69 the year after that, and then they won 62
in 98.
I think if Orlando had any shot of beating them with Shaq and Penny and Nick Anderson, Dennis Scott, and all them, 98 might have been their only shot. If they could have had a situation like Indiana had, where Indiana had maybe a 13 or 14 point lead in the second quarter.
Yeah.
I think if Orlando could have got them on the ropes like that, I think Orlando might have been able to capitalize. Probably not, but still would have been a fun team to see, because that was a real fun team to watch.
Yeah, I don't know. You look at that 98 Eastern Conference Finals with Indiana, and that was a battle. And if you could look at any team that came the closest of dethroning them, it was that 98 Indiana Pacers team. It took them to Game 7, and they had Travis Best at the point, or Mark Jackson. They had Reggie Miller, Rick Smits as a legitimate big man.
Jalen Rose, Chris Mullen.
Yeah, they had a stacked team. The Davis brothers.
Yeah,
I mean,
they had a double-digit lead in the second quarter, man.
Yeah, if they couldn't do it, I don't think, as good as Shaq and Penny were, it's hard to put them past. You'd have had to see it to believe it. I don't think nobody could ever say, yes, they would have, because if Indiana couldn't do it, I don't think. I mean, Jordan and the Bulls. If they don't take out the Indiana Pacers, I think the Magic wouldn't have had a shot.
Okay, I'm gonna say it this way. I don't think they could have beat Chicago either. But how about this? Shaq played 4 years with Orlando. If he would have played 11 years with Orlando, first 11 years, you got to figure somewhere down the line, Michael would have retired.
Yeah.
I wonder if that Orlando dynasty could have been every bit as good as that early 2000s LA Laker dynasty, or better.
Yeah, I definitely think. Like I said, if he would have stayed in Orlando, they would have been good. And bad on that Orlando GM, man. If you ever see I think there's a 30 for 30 that retell the Orlando Magic story and Shaq and all that kind of stuff. And the decision for him to leave was basically money. And the GM didn't, LA came in the last minute with like a crap ton of money, and the GM for the Magic just didn't want to match it. He had I don't know what was his deal. You pay Shaq whatever he wants. You had, with his performance and the career he had up to that point, you give him whatever he wants. You do whatever it takes to keep Penny and Shaq together.
Yeah.
But like I said, they would have had to go through Jordan and the Bulls for a lot of years, and that team did make it to a finals against the Rockets. So I think they would have good team, but I think they would have been one of those teams where they would have always just made it to the Eastern Conference Finals and never gotten over the hump. Maybe they could have snuck into the finals, but I don't know.
I think once Mike retired in '98, though, I think they could have started dominating after Mike leaves. I think.
Yes, I do think after that, if things would have worked out where, Shaq would have stayed on the Magic and Jordan and the Bulls still break up in '98, I think it would have been the Magic's turn to take over.
Yeah, and I'm selfishly speaking when I say that, because I like Orlando. They were a fun team to watch. I just wanted to see that show go on longer. So I could be speaking selfishly, but they definitely had some titles waiting in the wings, because when they got swept by Michael, they were only 2 more years till he retired. So they could have took over the league for a little while.
Yeah, and imagine how they could have changed history, because if Shaq stays in the Magic, he doesn't go to the Lakers. The Lakers probably don't trade for Kobe Bryant from the Hornets. You know what I mean? Kobe, spends his career as a Charlotte Hornet, and then we don't see the Lakers in the finals. So, who would have been that team in the West? That if the Lakers weren't the Lakers at that time, you know what I mean? I think it was
Spurs. San Antonio Spurs. That would have been some good matchups. Orlando.
Spurs. Yeah. what year is it? I'm thinking, oh man, I'm bugging out. I can't think. When Charles Barkley was with the Rockets during the second three-peat of the Bulls, they were talking about one of the West Coast teams, a real close series. Maybe it was Utah. It was Utah. I think the first of the two matchups.
Yeah,
They won a close series with Barkley and the Rockets.
yeah. Stockton hit a long jumper to steal it. Yeah, that was 97.
Yeah. So you never know, but it played out how it played out, and I think you know, Shaq going to the Lakers only personified Shaq as a personality. You know, played more into his personality, let him be that showboaty, goofy guy that he was, and you know, with the addition of Kobe, you know, that gave him that point guard just like he had with Penny at the beginning, and you know, he seemed to feed off that aspect when he had a good, you know, point guard playing with him. You know, Penny Hardaway, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, you know, that's where he excelled.
Yeah. You know, I'll end it on this, what I say about Shaq. You know, and I want to talk about off the court type stuff. I like everything that he does for people, you know, because he loves people, and he does a lot. I've probably seen him do more for people than any athlete probably. And I'm not saying that other athletes should do more. I'm just saying Shaq does so much for everybody, man. And you know, he's got that military background, meaning, you know, his father was a military man, and they traveled. I love the way he talks about his father.
Yeah.
So that's when it's his time to go, I'll think of you know, what a dominating player he was, and I'll think of the way he talks about his father and all the things that he does for people all over the world, man. What a great guy he is.
Yeah, I was telling you about this earlier, but if you haven't seen it, you know, he has this new show called Shaq Life, where basically it's a reality show where it just follows him around his everyday life, and there's some examples of that during that show where he as a kid says that, you know, he was a broke kid who needed shoes that nobody had his size, and he needed things, and people, you know, like his dad came through and gave him things, and people in the community came through for him and provided him with things. You know, he has this shoemaker that he discovered when he was a kid that made him his first pair of shoes for a prom or a dance at school or something like that. Made him for free and gave them to him. And from that day, Shaq has always gone back to this guy and bought his shoes from him. And you know, there's a couple examples in the show where, you know, Shaq goes and buys this kid who I think it was a size 19 shoe, you know, and goes and buys like 20 pairs of shoes for this kid, you know, spends like $6,000 at a shoe store in one day for him and this kid buying a bunch of shoes. You know, he was out on the road in Europe or somewhere, bought a couple of kids a laptop that they didn't know who he was and just happened to be admiring him. And Shaq's like, I'm gonna buy a laptop so you can look at all my, you know, because I remember being, Shaq says, I remember being that kid in the store wishing I had things and not having the means to get it, and somebody doing that for me. So he's very generous, very kind to people, especially kids. He's a big kid at heart. And that's one of the first things I remember about Shaq is, for me, I remember him for his personality just as much as I remember for his game. You know what I mean? I was a big fan of the Shaq, like, rap albums, even though they weren't the greatest, but I just love Shaq's personality, you know, big, goofy, you know, funny guy, you know, breakdancing on the floor, you know, doing the Shazam, you know, the Shazam movies or whatever, Kazam or whatever it was.
Did you see him in the mosh pit where they show him? I don't know if he's at spring break. He's in a mosh pit.
No, that's at that actually shows that in that show. So Shaq's a EDM bass DJ, and he was playing a big show. If I remember the name, it was over in Europe somewhere. And he got done with his set, and instead of going backstage and hanging out in the green room, he's like, I don't want to go hang out in the green room. I want to go experience it and give back to the fan. He went out in the fans and in the crowd, the fans that started moshing and having a good old time. And that's just Shaq, you know.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I like that kind of shit, man. And the one thing that he says in the studio, I've heard him say this more than probably anything else. He said his dad always told him that whether you come in contact with a guy that's making $35 million a year and has the best of everything, and you come across a guy that's pushing a mop and a broom at a gas station, he said you show them equal amount of respect. He said because nobody is better than the other guy.
Yeah.
He said something along those lines.
Yeah.
Shaq's a good dude. Man.
Yeah.
Really
how many players in the history of NBA can you say he's top 3 in my mind as far as the player he was and the personality he had? You know, because in my mind, when you think of like all-time personalities in the NBA, it's Magic, Shaq, and Charles Barkley for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'd have to think about that, but yeah, those are. Barkley seems like he could be unapproachable sometimes, probably if he was in one of his moves.
Well, maybe it's a combination of like his playing days and him now, but you know, Barkley was always a guy that told you how it was, but in a serious, but he was like, I think he was one of those guys where he looks serious, but he's not as serious as he looks. Like he's being funny, but because he's such a big figure, it comes off as intimidating. But you know, Chuck is always, you know, that's why people call him Chuck. You know, like he's always goofing around and being silly, and you know, you see it in Space Jam and you know all his things that he did with Mike, and you know, yeah. So
that's a good point. I can only think of one other athlete that probably was like that. Muhammad Ali. That's probably it.
Yeah, in the NBA, you struggle to, like I said, the 3 names that come to my mind, I said were Magic, Shaq, and Charles Barkley, and I don't know. I think now maybe LeBron enters that category because I think LeBron has that kind of personality on and off the court that kind of is the same way. I don't know. I would have to. You know, a name doesn't pop in my mind about today's players that are like that right off the bat, that are out in the media like that. But yeah,
those are good examples. All right, Dan. Well, those were some good questions and good topic today, man. It was nice talking about the Diesel. And and just so you know, I love that Shaq Diesel album that came out when he was in high school. That was my favorite.
I had it in my CD player all the time, man.
And I like that song he did with the Foosh Stick and What's Up, Doc. I love those. I still listen to those songs.
Yep. Okay. So to recap, you had Shaq at number 3, right?
Yeah.
And I had him at 2, but with some convincing, I don't know. I'm going to keep him at 2, but it was a really close call for me at 2 and 3 with Wilt and Shaq.
Yeah, I'm still surprised that it was unanimous. I thought Kareem would have more first place votes. A little surprised it was unanimous because I just would have thought that would have, like if 10 people would have voted, I would have expected 8 of those votes to be for Kareem and 2 of them to be for Wilt. But
okay.
You know, what do I know?
All right,
Dan. Well, good topic, man. It was good to get together, me and you, and talking about Shaq. This was your idea, I think, talk about Shaq, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it came up organically in conversation, just as an example, and we were like, hey, that'd be a good topic. That'd be a good guy to talk about. So we rolled with it.
Yeah, good topic, man. And
yeah,
I hope people that watch this, I hope they enjoy it, man. And it'd be good to hear some of their opinions. And,
yeah. I hope if you disagree with anything we say, or you got a funny Shaq moment or something to say, leave it down below in the comments. If you have a question, shoot it to us, and we'll do our best. But yeah, we appreciate everybody watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, turn on your alerts so you know when new episodes come out. And we'll keep trying and plugging along and making this podcast as best as we can. And yeah,
good job, Dan. Yep.
Thanks.
Everything Dan just said. We say so long. We'll be back in a few days with another good topic.
Yeah.
And thanks for supporting the show. Today was a lot of fun. I had fun doing it. Went by really, really fast. So, yep, like Dan said, hit that subscribe button and those alerts, and we'll see you later on in the week.
Hey, everybody, one quick last thing. I just want to take a second to wish my oldest daughter, Sydney Hutchinson, a happy sweet 16th birthday today. Today's her birthday. She's turning 16. I wish I could have been with her today to celebrate, but due to the lockdown and the stay-at-home restrictions in the state of Michigan, I couldn't go back home. So I talked to her today, but I just want to take the opportunity right now and tell her happy birthday. Everybody out there, go check out her YouTube channel, Sydney519. She's got some pretty funny stuff on there. But happy birthday, sweetheart. I love you. I'll see you soon.
Yep. And I also want to say happy 16th birthday to Sydney. I also want to say hello to Mason and Danny out there, Genesee County area. And I also want to tell Sydney that I appreciate you always helping your dad when you came to the shows. You were kind of enjoying the shows and you were working at the same time. And I just want you to know that I haven't forgot that. I appreciate all your help and everything you've done for the show. So I hope you continue to stay safe. And I hope you have a great, sweet 16th birthday.
Awesome. Yeah, she just got a job too. So congratulations on that.
Cool. Congratulations. All right.
All right.